Welcome back. This is the FloTrack podcast. It is Wednesday, September 15th. I'm Kevin Sully, joined by Gordon Mack. FloTrackPodcast@gmail.com is our email address. Find the show wherever you listen to podcasts. You can also watch live on the FloTrack podcast YouTube channel, recording Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 9 a.m. Central. Gordon, how you doing today?
Doing all right. It's Wednesday. It's hump day, September 15th. It's the hump day of the hump month. As I mentioned a few podcasts ago, September's the hump month. Middle of September, ready to go. Fall season is coming near. I think Starbucks is giving out those pumpkin spice lattes now. So season is upon us. And it's the end of track. I mean, yesterday was basically the end for a majority of the stars we've been talking about. There is one more track meet on Saturday, live on Flow in Nairobi, Kenya. That should be good. There's some people there. I do think Justin Gatlin's going to be there. Faith Kipyegon's going to be there. A few others. Might be more distance heavy. But the back and forth of talking about Andre DeGrasse, Christine Moba, Shelly Ann, Elaine Thompson, Fred Curley, Bromell, all these people that we've been having podcasts about for the past 2 months. I think it's over. I think we have come to the end of the 2021 track season. We made it, man.
Yeah.
We made it. Clap. We made it.
Yesterday in Zagreb and Bellinzona was basically a greatest hits of the things we've seen throughout the year. I'm going to give you a couple storylines, and you pick which one you think was the most interesting. Yeah, that men's 100 where DeGrasse beats Curley and Gatlin after a false start, wins it over 10 seconds. You have 100 in the other meet where Bracey runs 986, which was impressive. You have Mboma and Jackson running again. Fraser Price running 10.78. And then you have Devon Allen with 12.99 and Niyonsaba breaking the world record in the 2000. Of those, what do you think is the most consequential, most interesting to you?
Well, most interesting, I would say, is Devon Allen. I mean, we did a whole segment about, is he the next American to break 13 seconds? And then he must have listened to that podcast on his drive over to Bellinzona or Zagreb, wherever he was running that. And he did it right away. He was consistently in the 13.0 for this season. He kind of averaged 13.10 or better. He was due for a big breakout, and he got it in before next year.
Yep.
I mean, I'm sure he was probably eyeing that sub 13. We probably were thinking it's probably going to come in the 2022 season, but he found a way to make it happen in one final hurrah. And hey, 12.99 is legit. Devon Allen got fourth at the Olympics. We talked about seeing Grant Holloway not have his perfect race, that there was an opening for pretty much anybody who's a 13 low guy to win gold. Happened to be Hansel Parchment on that day. But Allen, if we had this Devon Allen in the Olympics, like this peak of Allen in Tokyo, maybe Devon Allen is all of a sudden an Olympic champion. And I do think it's going to be exciting to see Allen versus Holloway in 2022. Now, obviously, Holloway is extremely good, and the odds of Holloway having an Olympic type performance, again, probably not as common. Holloway is flirting with world records here. Allen is just flirting with breaking 13. But it is a good sign for the U.S. Hurdling in that, Daniel Roberts has broken 13. Now we have Devon Allen broken 13. And obviously we have Grant Holloway who's broken 13 multiple times. Those three, all kind of in their prime, will be an interesting 2020 to see them all go up against each other.
Yeah, in the prime is a key statement there, because you talked about Allen in a previous show, had a couple years with injuries, and then going back a little farther, obviously he had those football injuries as well too, where he was tearing his ACL. 2014 wins USA's. He's a freshman at Oregon, Gordon. And then 2 years later in 2016 has that big race at the trials, which is his PB. He did that so young. he seemed older than he was throughout his career. And then he has that drop off, and you're thinking, all right, he's a 13-2 guy, 13-1 guy. He'll scratch his way onto the team, but is he going to be able to get back into the gold medal mix? But you realize, hey, he's only 26 years old, right? He's still got all the tools that he had when he was younger. Looks better than ever before. This has been an incredibly consistent season, and now tops it with a 12.99. This is going to be a fun 2022 because we have now Holloway and Allen, the only two guys who broke 13 in the world this year. That's it, right? And now Holloway runs a 12.81, which puts that mark way out there. So you're thinking, all right, he's just head and shoulders above everybody else. But if you look at this thing globally, those are the only two guys under 13 seconds, and maybe the three Americans at USA's next year going sub 13, as you predicted, is in play. This is a pretty exciting development. I thought he could get to sub 13. I didn't think it'd be this quick. That segment was supposed to live on to next year. That wasn't supposed to be posted like 2 hours before he actually did it. I don't know if that made us look smart or way too cautious in retrospect, but he's ahead of schedule basically.
Yeah, and when we talk about Allen and Holloway being the only men to break 13, the only
Yep.
men to run 13 flat or faster since 2019 is Daniel
Mm-hmm.
Roberts, Grant Holloway, and Devon Allen. Because remember, no one was breaking 13 in 2020. 2019 was the year of the Holloway Roberts NCAA battle.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, we kind of are forgetting about Daniel Roberts. Maybe he is due for his big, reemergence in 2022. And it's going to be a really fun U.S. champs. Now, Grant Holloway, though, is he going to try in USA champs because he does have the bye?
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot of times U.S. athletes with buys don't go all in on their marquee event. So
Yeah.
Holloway might kind of not give us the big trio all at USA's and make us wait kind of for worlds for it. But I don't know. You never know. So, but yeah, it's going to be exciting. And yeah, what year is Devon Allen born in? He's 94. So
He's
yeah,
he's 26. Holloway's 23. Not a
yeah.
huge age discrepancy because you think, oh, this guy's the veteran and this guy's the up and comer, but they're pretty close in age. So Allen is fully back to that form, as I said, and I'm curious to watch just how this develops because 12.99 is going to win you most races. And now there's a little bit of rivalry here with the Jamaican athletes, with Levy and Parchment, because they ran really well in the back half of the season. Did anybody improve their stock more on the U.S. side post Olympics than Allen? I guess you'd say Michael Cherry as well too. Are those the two?
For U.S. athletes,
Yeah,
I mean, you
fourth place
in the
guys.
sprints, yeah, in the sprints, I would say. I mean, I would think Kenny B kind of raised his profile a bit. Fred Curley kind of raised it, but for the athletes that weren't medalists,
Yeah.
definitely Allen and Michael Cherry on the men's side had the biggest like upswing. On the women's side, I mean, I guess you could say Tiana Daniels because she had that
Hmm.
kind of a good race at pre, but it wasn't like a race that won. Obviously, it's just hard to for
Yeah.
the female women to kind of improve much because of the presence of the Jamaican sprinters. I guess you could say
Someone.
Quinera Hayes. Quinera
Yeah. That's
Hayes
what I was
won the Diamond
gonna
League.
say. Mhm.
Yeah, so I'd say
Yeah.
Hayes, Allen, and Cherry are kind of like the three that kind of improved the most.
Yeah. And then if you go back to trials at the end of the year, you'd have to throw Kate Grace in there, but she didn't make the Olympic team, but her stock certainly went way up. Cherry helped himself a ton, and Hayes helped herself a ton because they got the bye. Allen wasn't able to get the bye, but he came in post Olympics. It was whoa, Allen got up for fourth in that hurdle final. That was a great race. To now we're thinking, okay, wait a minute, this guy is legit gold medal contender now in
Yeah.
2022. And I know, again, I think Holloway's gonna break the world record next year, which is not shocking. Um, but that's not a guarantee. That's not a guarantee. And if you're running sub 13s, just as Parchment proved this year, even if you're running 13 lows, you can if you do it at the right time, you can end up with a gold medal. Which, listen, in 2014, if you said Devon Allen is going to compete for a gold medal one day in the hurdles, nobody probably would have bet against you because he was 19 years old, running 13-1, winning USAs. It's just stuff happened in the intervening years that made us think, okay, well, might need to reassess that. But now we're back to where we were 2014, 2016 timeframe with Allen posting these big performances. Um, all right, what else? What else caught your eye?
Francine Niyonsaba.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, she kind of did the epic troll world record attempt. Um, she's a DSD athlete. She is banned from competing in the 400 meters up to the 16 up to the mile, which is 1,609 meters. So
Yeah,
naturally, she ran a 2,000, which is just 392 meters longer than what she's not allowed to run according to the quote science. And she destroyed the world record.
yeah,
And watching the race, I was actually kind of surprised because she wasn't guaranteed to win it. So she goes out in 420, and
mm-hmm.
with the lap to go, going up on the backstretch, I should have remembered who this athlete was. Do you have the name of the athlete who was in second?
It wasn't a. It
You can look.
was. It was Gebra Hizabir, wasn't it? Of
Yeah, Geber
Ethiopia, the woman who
Hizabi.
got. Yeah, she got fourth in the Olympics.
Yeah. So she is on her tail in the backstretch in the final lap. They just went a 420 mile
Yeah,
and attempts to pass Francine on that backstretch. And then
yeah,
Francine's like, oh shit, makes another acceleration, still on her tail, but then at the 200-meter mark, with 200 meters to go, then the separation happens and
yeah,
Francine kind of pulls away and she closes in 61 seconds. So she runs a 420 mile and then a 61 fifth lap. We don't really see 2Ks that often. So the
no,
impressiveness of a 2K record is kind of really, you don't know, right?
yeah.
But how many women in the past 3 years, so assuming women in their prime now and women who are in the prime all the way back to like 2019,
Mm-hmm.
could do what Francine did, run a 420 mile and then run a 61 fifth lap?
Two others, Hassan and Faith Kipyegon. That's it. Now, Dababa had run a 5:23 indoors, which is actually faster than the outdoor world record. But in the past couple of years, I would leave her off that list. I don't think she could have done it in the past couple of years. But yeah, it's a very short list. It's hard to conceptualize these off distances, but when you say it like that, or when you say, "Hey, she went through 1500 in 403 and then ran 500 more meters," you kind of get a grasp on how good it is.
Yeah. 1,500 plus 500 is a lot harder to grasp than I think a mile plus one lap. But
Well, I'm just using a 1,500 meter time, but closing, as you said, going through in 420 and then closing in 61. I'm looking up right now. Dababa in 2017 ran the 5:23 indoors. So I don't know if you want to quibble with last 4 years, maybe you'd add her into that list, but that would require her to go a couple seconds faster outdoors. I think she's in elite company next year, and I think she's not going to get to run this race at a championship because it doesn't exist. You've circled that women's 3,000 at World Indoors as one of your must-watch races of 2020. That'll be fun, especially if Hassan is in it. Maybe even Kipyegon moves up a little bit in distance. Laura Mir, that could be really good. But where we're going to see them is in the 5,000, which is more onto Hassan's turf. But we've seen Niyonsaba run 14:20 now, so I don't think there's any distance out there that she's not going to be competitive in. She's got the range all the way from 8 up to 10K. So it was interesting too. You said it was the troll attempt, right? Because you have the regulations 1609 and then you go up to the next available record to break it. They also said, which was surprising, Zagreb had never had a world record before because they've had some pretty big time meets, big time competitors at that meet. So it was they achieved that goal too. They got the world record and then Niyonsaba got a world record as well too.
Yeah, I think Niyonsaba's. I mean, now that she has a 2K world record, she's probably just going to slowly go for world records on the way up, right? So it's a 2 mile because she's close to the 2 mile world record. She's second fastest all time. And if
Yeah.
you're there, you can eye the 3K world record. So it's just going to work, get the
Hmm.
2K, 3K, 2 mile, maybe throw in a 4K, and then go for the 5K and just have every
Well,
K between, 2 and 5.
and then if you do indoor and out, you can really make a living at those distances between a
Yeah.
mile and a 2 mile indoors. There's a lot of
She found a flaw
opportunities
in the
there.
system,
Yeah,
a flaw in
exactly.
the
It's right.
rule.
Yeah, exactly. Just keep exploiting those off distances in that range. Even like I said, even 3K indoors, I think she's gonna tear it up there as well too. So she keeps on rolling. No surprise there. Fraser Price, 1078, about right. She did not have Thompson Hurrah in this race. So she keeps it rolling, ends her season with another sub 10.8. Gordon.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, I've said this in the pod before, but Fraser Price and Elaine Thompson, they kind of given fans and commentators and media kind of bigger expectations on them every time they show up, and they
Mhm,
kind of find ways to let us feel let down with impressive performances. That we see 10-7, we're like,
mhm,
it's not 10-6. Oh, it's
mhm,
not a 10-5 attempt. So, but it shows she's been consistent. She's been able to be under a 10-8 for a long time, doing it multiple times, not a flash in the pan. And it makes sense that she's not running 10-6, 10-5 right now. The season's
yeah.
long, September. Kind of rest up, get ready for the off season, and then go all in. Probably one last splash in 2022 to try to really lower your PB in bigger environments like a World Championships, Jamaica Trials type stuff. So
Mhm.
will be exciting, but yeah, I mean, nothing much really to add to Shelley and Fraser Price's season. Ending
Mhm.
it with a 10-7, it's pretty damn good. It's
Yeah.
just crazy that there's two of them. That another countrywoman can also do that and is doing it even a little bit faster at moments.
Yeah, I mean, she's almost run 2/10 faster this year. That's the unbelievable part about it. It's just been a really fun year in the women's 100, and I expected them to be good this year. Did not expect this at all. My thought was, okay, yeah, 10 sixes, maybe high 10 sixes. Someone can improve upon it, but the back and forth that we saw in the lowering at the times was pretty cool. How about these men's sprints, Gordon? So you had in one of these meets, Marvin Bracey looked great, runs 986, beats Baker and Trayvon Bromell. And then in the other race, you had a clear false start by Andre DeGrasse. They give him the free pass. He thinks it's funny. Everybody on the start line kind of thinks it's funny because it's like, yeah, it's the end of the season. It's track and field. Rules, what are rules? So he runs. He catches Curley and Gatlin at the line. They ran north of 10 seconds here. So I suppose we should start with Bracey because the guy runs another 986. He's done it enough times where you're thinking this is no fluke for Marvin Bracey.
Yeah, Bracey, we've already anointed him as a contender for that team in 2022. But the more often you break 10, the more often you run 9.8s, the more often you're going to be considered in the conversation for making a team and ultimately winning a medal, right? Because if you can make Team USA, you can win a medal at World Champs. So yeah, it's going to be hard to pick a team. I mean, this is what's crazy. Are we going to go from the beginning of a season being all in that Trayvon Bromell is the Olympic favorite, best in the world, So now at the end of the season, where Trayvon is like, maybe he doesn't make the team.
Hmm.
Like, it just shows it's crazy what can happen in this event where an athlete who you can kind of anoint as the top dog in the world can all of a sudden be the fourth guy in his own country. Because obviously, when we kind of anointed Trayvon in the beginning of 2021, we had no idea
Hmm.
what Fred Curley was going to be able to do. Right? Fred Curley has passed. Right? Ronnie Baker has also kind of passed him. I mean, you see, Ronnie Baker ran better at the Olympics. Ronnie has
Hmm.
beaten out Bromell multiple times post trials. So you have to put Baker in that conversation. Bracy now running 9.8s late in the season versus Bromell running 9.9s.
Hmm.
Kind of maybe Bracy's in there. Obviously, Christian Coleman is coming back. It just you
Yeah.
start thinking and you start Kenny Bednarik is running incredibly well at the 200. You got to imagine he's still going to be able to run a fast 100. Noah
Yeah.
Lyles runs 19.5. He's going to be able to run a fast 100. So the landscape of the men's 100 in the U.S. keeps on
Yeah.
flipping and flopping, right? It was all
Hmm.
Coleman, then it was all Bromell. Now it's all Curly, and now going to 2022, it's still Curly, but now you're like, hey, watch out for Bracy. Baker's
Yeah.
still there. Christian Coleman's coming back. So
This
it's kind of wild.
you could have a final next year at USA's. Coleman doesn't need to run it because the bye. But you could have a final. These are 7 of the 8 lanes: Bracy, Coleman, Curley, Lyles, Baker, Rommel, Bednarik.
Yeah.
That's 7. And then pick your other person that's going to be in there. Or if Coleman doesn't ultimately run it, you throw 2 other people in there. But still, you just see how stacked that thing is. And listen, there's questions on all those guys, obviously, but the upside is also really clear on all those guys. Because when you're doing your little history, you forgot, 20. I mean, Lyles had a moment there too, right, where he beat Coleman and he
Yeah.
won a U.S. title as well too in the 100. So they've been passing it around pretty quickly. Rommel, since the Olympics, hasn't won a race. He goes fourth. His fastest time was at Paribas Wind 8 at 986, and that's where he gets fourth. His best finish was probably the 990s, or was in the 997 in Brussels. He gets runner up, but really competitive. And then these last 2 races, less so. I guess you could also throw Michael Norman in there for the in
Sure.
lane for the 8th lane. Sure. But how
I
how
mean,
incredible would that be? How incredible would that be if we had that group making the final? Obviously, there's some young people out there, Michael Williams, who got on the relay pool for Tokyo. You think about him. Gillespie's been pretty solid the last couple of years, but just the star power and the ability of any one of those people to win is unique. I think to this
yeah.
era.
Yeah. It's just, yeah, it's been a past, it's been like a hot potato of who is the top dog,
Yeah,
for the past like 3 years. Right now, Curly has the potato, and will he hold on to that potato? We'll find out. He gets to hold on to the potato through the offseason. We know that.
yeah,
So
yeah,
he doesn't have to worry about losing the potato until, like, I would say May is the earliest he can potentially lose the potato. But really, he's not going to lose the potato until June when they actually have another U.S. champs. So
yeah. Coleman is in a good spot, not needing to run top 3 at USA's. That's a good position to be in. Although he won't be able to start racing until later than some of these other guys. I'm fascinated on all of them. Usually you come in, you're like, all right, I know what to expect from this person, I know what to expect from this person, but this one's the wild card. Got a lot of wild cards in here. And a lot of them have this variability of they could run 9.7 or they could run 9.8, 9.99 or something like that and be 6th at USA's, basically. So
yeah,
you're talking about a huge fluctuation between gold medalist and not making the team with a lot of these a lot of these athletes that I've named before. Again, I mean, Bracy, Coleman, Curley, Lyles, Baker, Rommel, Bednarik.
I mean,
That's a
Curly was
that's a stack.
third at the trials. Curly was third at the trials.
Bednarik was
There's a
fourth.
there's a timeline somewhere where all of a sudden Curly doesn't get the opportunity to
Yeah.
like run at the Olympics, get his silver, then go on. Like it
Hmm.
was just one race going either way can change the fortune of one athlete versus the other. I mean,
Yeah.
that's what's so wild about it. So, I
Yeah.
mean,
So go ahead.
like, let's think about this Galaxy Brain. Not to take anything away from the people who did well in the Olympics and at the U.S. trials and did it, but imagine a permutation where Bracy doesn't get hurt and he finds a way to be the guy to get third. Does Bracy have like a season the way Curly is, of like a
Hmm.
postseason where Bracy one is invited to pre? Does Bracy medal at the Olympics? Does Bracy run well in the Diamond League?
Hmm.
Like, do all these different things happen? And all of a sudden, like Bracy is the top dog going into 2022 because we
Yeah.
know the talent's there. You don't wake up and run 9.8. You have to. There's something there in order to do that to
Yeah.
multiple times in one season. Um,
Well,
but
there's also the alternate. There's also these two alternate paths. Bednarik was point oh 0.03 behind him in the 100. He could have made it in the one and the two. I mean, he obviously did great in the two. Gets the medal. Has a good
yeah,
season overall. But then there's a other alternate universe where Curly beats Jacobs of Italy in in the Olympics and we're talking about the Olympic champion in the 100
yeah,
right now because it could go the other direction as well.
yeah. That's man. It's a race that lasts 9 seconds, so it makes
Yeah.
sense that the air plus minus air. What's not air? Plus minus degree of
Yeah.
air, margin of air. That's the word.
Margin
Margin
of
of
error.
air. That's the word I was looking for. Is very small. So
I
anyway,
think if you're Bromell or Coleman and you're looking for silver linings, what you're thinking about is that you've run 9.7 before, and you're thinking if I can just get back to that, then I can separate myself
yeah,
from this crowd of people who are really locked in at that mid 9.8 range. Not easy to do, but maybe that's something that gives you a little bit of confidence going into 2022.
agreed, agreed.
Agreed. All right. Well, that does it for the track recap portion of the pod.
Podcast over. We'll do a 28-minute
No,
podcast and we're done.
we got two more stories we got to talk about.
Ooh,
The first one, and when you said Nairobi's on Saturday, is that right?
I think so. I think yeah.
Okay.
The actual even though I declared this the final track episode, we're still gonna have two more at least.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we'll preview on Friday, and
I
then we'll
mean,
talk about it, recap it on Monday, and then we'll be into road races and cross country and stuff after that. But um, let's talk about Cole Hocker, Gordon, the Olympic trials champion for Oregon, announced he is going pro and signing with Nike. Not shocking to a lot of people who predicted that would happen this year, especially after his run late in the season and making the Olympic team going all the way to the Olympic final. But what did you think of Hawker's decision?
well, in a vacuum, it makes sense. But outside the vacuum, we kind of were flirting with potentially seeing an Olympic finalist in a cross country race, running 8Ks and 10Ks. Because we never saw him going pro right before the Olympics, which you think that's when he might do it, not right
Mhm.
after. Didn't have like the opportunity to run pro at pre or something like that. And then he shows up on the Oregon roster. He has the
Yeah.
profile pic, says incoming sophomore, redshirt sophomore, getting ready to go. And you're thinking Oregon is going to have a pretty crazy cross country roster with Cole Hocker, obviously, Cooper Tier. We know what he can do.
Mhm.
They had that transfer from Cincinnati, Aaron Benfeld. They have a good one. They have three guys who can all finish in the top 20. That's a good cross country team. And so we're kind of thinking, all right, well, maybe Cole Hocker is going to be the first NIL pro athlete, right? Where
Mhm.
you have the Nike deal on the side, but you still can run for your school. And I think there's nothing, and we kind of made sense in our head because Cole Hocker has nothing left to prove at the NCAA level for indoor
Hmm.
outdoor for sure because he's kind of done it
Yeah.
all. The only thing really left for him to prove, not really prove, but more experience, is what
Yeah.
it's like to be on a cross country team that can win or podium, right? And Oregon had a team that could win or podium, and so he thought maybe he'd play cross country for fun, get an NIL deal with Nike on the side. Best of
Yeah.
both worlds. It's not a conflict of interest because Oregon's a Nike school. But I think when push comes to shove, when you get a offer from a shoe company and
Yeah.
it's like a big number, you stop thinking about, yeah, but it'll be fun to do like 2 months of cross country running. You're like,
Yeah.
all right, I should just like sign it and let's start getting these paychecks because being a professional runner is an extremely hard level to get at because there's not many opportunities for athletes to be paid to run. And so you sometimes you don't want to mess with it. You don't want to be like, "Oh yeah, I'll
Hmm.
just wait till December. The offer will still be there." I think the offer probably would have still been there, but you never know, right? He could tear his ACL or twist his ankle on a route and all of a sudden he's having
Hmm.
to rehab for a whole year, and then that deal's a little muffled because they're like, "Hey, you're coming off an injury and all that stuff." So take the money and run. Um, and it's gonna be he's still training in Oregon, still gonna be with those guys. We're not gonna have like two cross country teams with like a pro 1500-meter runner on the squad with Hobbs Kessler at NAU, who's running with
Yeah.
the team, going to school at NAU, and now Cole Hocker, who's running with the team and going to school at Oregon.
A lot of volunteer assistant coaches with
Yes.
Olympic credentials this fall who are very young, by the way. What do you think this tells us or doesn't tell us about NIL's impact? Because to me, obviously, it's all right. The sure thing is this Nike money. You take it. You don't know what's going to happen, what you're going to be able to cobble together with a NIL type setup where you can stay in college and still get money. And also, I don't know this, but maybe these big shoe companies are a little bit cautious in getting into the NIL side of things. They already sponsor the universities here and spend a lot of money putting their logo on their jerseys. And maybe the idea that they're just going to dump a bunch of money into individuals with this NIL setup is not going to happen, at least not yet. There's just so much we still don't know about it. It's still new.
Yeah, no, the more you think about it, from you look from the brand's perspective, an NIL deal with a college kid isn't gonna be tied to like their. You're not able to tie it to like performances and qualification. It's more just like we're giving you money for your likeness, whatever. And I
Yeah.
think you open up the opportunity to kind of lose the athlete when they become a professional, right? And I think these brands are kind of like, hey, do you want to be on Team Nike or not? Like, we don't
Hmm.
want to like we don't need to like mess around with the contract language for a season or a season and a half when ultimately you know your end goal is a legit pro contract. So let's just jump over that little mini hurdle and go right to the end game. And I'm sure that's what happened with Cole. Like, hey, let's do cross country NIL. Like, you know, the end is a contract. So we don't want
Yeah.
to risk 3 months of messing around. You probably don't want to risk losing us
Yeah.
from the negotiation table. So let's just go all in. And I think we thought that NIL means like Cole Hocker was a perfect example of an NIL deal where like young kid still might have a reason to stay in school, but can
Yeah.
Nike would be willing to give that kid money. But now I think the more and more I look at it big picture, I don't think we're going to be seeing fake pro NIL contracts with college runners because I don't I think a runner who's worth an NIL deal is going to be already worth an actual pro contract.
You're talking about a
So
big NIL
therefore,
deal.
Yeah, and then I mean, Nike isn't going to go out there and be like, "Here's $20 a week to say hashtag Nike." Like Nike, they're not.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
don't think
no.
Brooks isn't doing that type of stuff. They're either going to pay you as a pro runner or not. Like, I don't
Hmm.
think.
Yeah,
I mean, you're going to see people get like NILs for like, "Ooh, here's a nutrition supplement from my local running store or whatever,"
yeah,
because it's
yeah,
like
right.
$500 here or there. It's whatever. But the idea of having like these kind of, I call them fake pro contracts, NIL, so they can still be
Quasi
in
pro.
college.
Yeah.
Quasi pro, yeah. I just don't think that's going to be happening because I think it would have happened with Cole. It's not happening with Yair Nagus. I think it's
Thing
or
Mo
it
would have been a
hasn't been.
perfect example.
Yeah, I think Mo would have been a perfect example. Yeah, but I think once you are NIL, once you are in the eyes of once a brand
Yeah,
values you to give you money, you likely have done enough in college where college isn't as enticing. Like a thing Mo literally has nothing else left to do in college. There's nothing she can do. I mean, she's
yeah,
freaking is the fastest woman in the world. And you go to the NCAA and run against like 205 women in conference dual meets. No, it's like, all right.
yeah. It seems like right now the NIL path is more for runners who have a big social following and a big ability to influence people on campus and in the communities that they share,
Yeah.
unless that they are going to
Fast.
be a pro runner with Olympic potential or who are already in the Olympics. Now
Yeah.
early, it's early, so that could shift and that could change, but that seems to be more the direction that it's going. Because I agree with you. If you're going to pay the person, and then you can make sure that they're doing what they're supposed to. What they
Yeah.
get they have the proper schedule, they have a proper structure around them, and you just have a lot more influence in that person's development. Because I know this was the first year, but Hocker and Mo were pretty big time names, and it's not as if they're like a Hocker and Mo aren't going to come around every single year. Because with
Yeah.
Mo, you had obviously someone as a freshman win a gold medal, blow everybody out, does this awesome 4-8 combo, gets this insane amounts of exposure for a freshman, and then Hawker running at Oregon, starting with the indoor exploits, then going outdoors, the big win over Central. There's a lot of buzz around Hawker as well too, and so these two athletes would have been, the higher end of higher profile. I think the issue was they're just so good that they maybe don't even apply to this sort of setup. Because
Yeah.
if you're looking at this example in other sports, are athletes going to stay in school longer in other sports and not go pro and join a pro team? I know the example is not perfect, but are they not going to do that to get NIL money? Of course not. That would be
Yeah.
silly. If the top 10 pick in the NBA draft isn't going to be like, no, I got too much deodorant money back at Michigan State. I'm going to stay there and put hashtag I smell great on my Instagram. They're going to go and they're going to move on to the next chapter. Running and track's a little bit different because you can train together, you can compete together, everything is blended. But the overarching uh, idea of moving on to a pro career after college and getting the funding to do that, I think is important to consider here.
Now, obviously, there's like a NCAA reaction, not reaction. I don't know what the word is. Basically, no Cole Hocker on the Oregon cross country team dramatically changes Oregon's chances of winning a
Yeah.
cross country title. I know you don't want me to talk about cross country yet, but I do want to do a little teaser
Mm,
about cross country.
do it.
So I did post updated rankings uh, for top teams, top individuals, men and women, top 250 individuals. You can check them out on the site now. We did the preseason rankings at the end of
Yeah.
August. Now, these new updates 2 weeks later, they aren't updates because of anything we saw in cross country, because cross country's only been around now for like 2 weeks. No teams aren't really running their top guys or girls, or if they do, they're
Yeah.
running in, fake dual meets. But the rankings have changed dramatically. And the reason why is because we're slowly getting notification of certain athletes coming back to school, not coming back to school, and new athletes. So I can just give a little quick highlight on the men's side. So Oregon was ranked 4th in the preseason. They've now dropped to 8th because when you remove Cole Hocker, who's a top 10 guy, you're not gonna you
That'll do it.
lose. You have to replace him with your 6th guy, and it's not that good. So Oregon went from 4th to 8th. Uh, BYU went from 7th to 4th because of learning more about who they actually have back. But the new top 4 on the men's side is Notre Dame 1, NAU 2, Oklahoma State 3, and BYU 4. So that's the new top 4 on the men's side. And check out all the rankings. Alabama went from not ranked to be now being 15th because Alabama announced the addition of 2 Kenyans who have run sub 1330 5Ks in Victor
Mm-hmm.
Kiprop and Hillary Chariot. So they're both going to be top 40 type guys, and that makes Alabama kind of in the mix, potentially be making the team, making the meet. But yeah, check out all the rankings on the site. People have jumped up and
Mm-hmm.
jumped down. Like Michigan went from 21st to 9th
Yeah.
because one of their freshmen ran really well. I was like, oh, you're better than you're not a 1405 freshman anymore. You're pretty good.
Yeah.
And then some teams dropped out. Like Gonzaga dropped out. I had them 13th, but I had no idea that a guy named Peter Hogan isn't coming back. So all these little things, check it out. Top 25 teams, men and women, and then I rank the top 250 men and women. Give me a.
Mm-hmm.
We'll do a shout out. Give me a ranking number between 1 and 250, and I'll let you know who that is.
108.
Is that 108th on the men's side or women on the men?
Both.
All right. Speaking of Michigan, you got Christian Hubaker,
Let's
who I
go.
have ranked 108th. Here's his credentials. He's run a 1409 5K, an 839 steeple. Pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
He was
I like it.
15th at NCAAs in the steeple, 15th. So
He's gonna beat that ranking. 108th.
he's going to beat
That's
that ranking.
disrespectful.
And then 108th on the women's side. You want 108th on the women's side?
Yeah.
108th on the
Of
women's
course.
side is Olivia Howell, a sophomore from Illinois. Look at that.
Let's go.
People don't know these people, but
ILL.
I
You
so
should know.
she
She's gonna also beat your chart as well too. I think top
she
100
was
easy.
she was 10th in the NCAA 1500. So she's
Oh,
run 409. She's pretty good.
okay. She's definitely top 100 then. Come on, Gordon, get it together. We got a request in the chat for your top 5 individuals.
Top 5 individuals right now, gun to my head. On the women's side, Mercy Chilengat 1, Bethany Haas 2, Hannah Steelman 3, Julia Haymek 4, Taylor Rowe 5, and then the top, I'll say 2, I have the top freshmen. Top freshman, guess this doesn't count. I mean, we got a lot of repeat freshmen, but right now, top freshman was Amelia Mazzy Downey of New Mexico, ranked 17th. The top true freshman I have is Sydney Thorvaldsen. Is that his last name? Who didn't run outdoor last year in high school. I just think she was injured, but she's the Gatorade Athlete of the Year. She's run for Arkansas, so look out for her. All right, men. Who do I have on the men? Number 1, I have Connor Mance. 2, Cooper Tier. 3, Abdi Hamanur. 4, Wesley Kiptu. And 5, Nico Young. That is my top 5.
Underselling
Disagree?
Nico
Agree?
again. You didn't learn from 2020. I told you Nico's top 5 guy.
Okay, so
you didn't believe me.
Where should I rank Nico? Should I make him ahead of Wesley Kiptu or Abdi Hamanur? I think Abdi Hamanur is going to be their top guy. What's that?
No, I was just joking. I don't think you're really disrespecting. Okay. It's just weird to have him go backwards from last year, but it's cross. Everybody's so close, and sometimes you're your freshman year. You're like, oh, they're freshmen. What are they going to do next year? And they end up just around the same spot. Another request, Gordon, in the chat. Who is your sprint king of 2021 now? Which is interesting, right? Because
Okay.
you had a three-way tie, and then we get one more tiebreaker with Curly and DeGrasse going against each other. DeGrasse wins the eventual race, but then there's the false start before it. But they still raced each other. I had DeGrasse, so I'm fine. I used the gold medal as my tiebreaker. But what about you? Or are you gonna
Well,
wait?
that
Are you gonna wait
race
till
you can't.
Continental Tour Nairobi? Because I think Curly's running.
Well,
So
I do. Yeah, Curly is running. He's running the 200. So I will have to wait, but I will say the that race doesn't count. The Gross's win there does not count. He should not have that. He should have been DQ'd. So you don't get credit. They let him on. He was smiling. They were both smiling in the race, like while running. If you watch the slow mo, they're like laughing. It's almost as if they were doing like a practice stride. They're like, hey, we got
yeah,
Bellinzona to give us $5,000 each to show up and stride and run 10:08. So I don't think they were trying to beat each other. Part of me was thinking, are they trying to run it slow so Justin Gatlin could finish with a victory? Because Gatlin was kind of in
mm,
there. He was almost going to win it. He was in the lead, I think, with like 20 meters to go. But then Curly and DeGrasse ultimately ran by him. But yeah, no, that
so
race means nothing in my tiebreaker rankings for King of 2021. Got to wait for Nairobi because Curly is running Nairobi, I believe, and then I'll officially crown
okay.
my champion.
So right now you still have it a three-way tie. All right,
Three-way
fair
tie,
enough. Fair enough.
sharing the
You are
cup,
sticking.
Stanley
You're
Cup style.
sticking to exactly. They all get to hang out with the cup for a little while. One more thing I wanted to mention before we get going. We're gonna get into fall road racing pretty soon here. Berlin Marathon, one of the world marathon majors, is going to be on September 26th, Sunday. You can watch it live on FloTrack if you're in Canada, UK, Ireland, Turkey, Italy, the Baltics, Australia, New Zealand, and Hong Kong. So streaming to a whole bunch of places there. This race is going to feature Kennedy Sibikele, who back in 2019, Gordon, was just 2 seconds off of the world record set by Eliud Kipchoge the previous year in Berlin. So we all know Berlin, very fast course, world record attempts aplenty, and we'll see Bekele doing leg one of his fall marathon double on Sunday, September 26th.
Yeah, should be a great marathon. It's the first of many this fall season. As we know, because of the pandemic, all the spring marathons are being combined with all these fall marathons. Berlin is kicking off the fall season. The
Mhm.
last like high quality marathon we've had was at the Tokyo Olympic Games, and now we're getting ready
Mhm.
for the big majors. And Berlin should be quite fast, like it always is. And hey, Bekele's there, so never know what's going to happen.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to watch because he does like to chase records. The focus should he should have the field. He's the big favorite here, basically, based on PBs and even recent results. I know he's had some obvious injury troubles recently, but if he's in form, I think it's going to turn into Bekele versus the clock here, which is an intriguing matchup. He's one of the few guys in the world, few people in the world that if it's just them and the clock, it's still very very fun to watch. And obviously, we'll watch him after this race, see how he prepares for his next fall marathon. But yeah, again, that's September 26th, live on FloTrack, UK, Canada, Italy, Ireland, Turkey, Baltics, Australia, New Zealand, and Hong Kong. That's Gordon. That's all I got. We are we
So you
are
got
out of topics unless someone's got something in the chat here. Someone asked if we've heard about an FBI investigation dealing with CJ Uja from the UK. No, we are not. We do not have information unless Gordon does, and he hasn't been telling about his FBI contacts. I do not know anything about that. I did say that his B sample was also positive. So you're looking at Great Britain getting DQ'd from that spot, and then everybody else elevated up there. They didn't win, obviously, so Italy there for the gold still. So I don't know anything about that. They're saying FBI crackdown with drugs from the Olympics. Yeah, I'm not aware. I apologize for not knowing more.
We'll look
Any
into it.
other question?
Maybe we'll come
Yeah,
back with you with information on Friday if we have anything.
yeah. I don't know who Gordon's gonna call, but I'm interested. I'm interested in who Gordon. He picks up the phone and he calls somebody. I'm not sure who that will be. All right, we'll leave it there. Thanks to Colt for producing today. Thank you to my co-host Gordon. I'm Kevin. We'll be back on Friday live, 9 a.m. Central. You can watch on YouTube or catch it archived later on the site or wherever you listen to podcasts. We'll talk to you then.